Hi, my name is Daniela Saucedo, and this is my video for the final evidence for the class of anti-corruption in government, firms, and society. So, the case of corruption that I selected for my assignment is that Africa is now facing an economic devastation due to the current corruption that has been present on high-level public officials in different countries all around the continent.
The article of Al Jazeera that talks about the situation mentions that this past June, Malawi's president Lazarus Chakwera fired the country's chief of police, suspended several senior government officials, and took away all powers from his deputy Saulos Chilima after all of them were accused of being involved in corruption by receiving kickbacks from Sunet Sattar, an English businessman, in exchange for government contracts worth more than 150 million. This is not the first time that the president has to clean up the cabinet from corrupt ministers, since this had also happened recently in January. Many other countries in Africa are suffering from different cases of corruption, such as South Africa, where its former president and former ministers were accused of permitting, supporting, and enabling corruption and state capture. The same situation is happening in Zimbabwe, where the president is accused of facilitating millions of dollars through a shady bank deal with a businessman, or in Mozambique, where party members are being participants of the disappearance of loans worth $2.2 billion. Several other government officials across the continent are involved in alleged corruption cases that are leaving deep damages on Africa's economies, since these illicit activities are enabling the states to provide the basic services to its people.
According to the definition of corruption on Chapter 2, page 53 of the book Corruption, What Everyone Needs to Know, corruption consists of the exploitation of public office for private gain. It is also mentioned in Chapter 2 a theory that states that elected public officials benefit from corruption when they abuse their position by extorting bribes from businesses in exchange for government contracts or favorable legislations, which is exactly what we can observe that is happening in several countries around Africa when high-level public officials act on dishonesty by committing different types of corrupt actions.
The Sustainable Development Goals that are not being fulfilled in this case is the goal number 1 and goal number 3, which are no poverty and good health and well-being. The first goal seeks to eradicate poverty or to reduce the percentage of poverty at least significantly in all countries. Nowadays, Africa is struggling to recover its economy from the damages caused by the corruption, since huge amounts of money have been stolen over the years through illicit activities. The goal number 3 targets to ensure healthy lives and to promote well-being for everybody at all ages. This is linked with the sustainable goal number 1, because if there are not enough economic resources to fulfill the most basic needs of people in Africa, then their lifestyle is not going to be adequate. An example of this is the conflict between Africa and Europe about the threatening of food security, which is a huge challenge for people's well-being and the consequence of the economic struggle that they are going through. In this case of corruption, we can find political science, economy, and sociology. The theory proves that corruption has a significant impact on the economy and stability of a country. As it was mentioned before, corruption distorts economic and political institutions. That is the main cause of Africa's poverty and struggles. It is also important to take into consideration that corruption constitutes an equilibrium, since it is all about expectations and about the social norms and the common attitudes towards it. Since the current corruption issue in Africa is now a commonly known subject, politicians are doing extra efforts for showing themselves under an anti-corruption profile, but this does not mean that they are taking any action into this. This behavior could also be explained by the theory of social expectations. That is why politicians now must make special efforts to guarantee its citizens that they will rule under an anti-corruption rule, because it is what is expected from them.
Africa is fully immersed in corruption, so it needs a deep renewal based on transparency and accountability to be able to fight corruption and to eradicate the problem from the bottom.
Government should be led under new and rigorous anti-corruption protocols, and this should be applied to every public official without any exception. For this, it is important to determine transparency politics and to establish higher standards about democratic principles. International community involvement is important, and citizens should be participants of the change too, not only by setting an example of honesty in their daily lives for the social expectation, but also by exhorting firms and politicians to keep accountability, and by demanding them to convert all their promises into tangible actions and solutions. This way, both the government and citizens will follow along the rule of law, and Africa will manage to get a better political and economic stability.